everybody, and welcome to the Pies Nation podcast. For the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Nicholas Sacco here with you once again. Episode 11 of season 7, or episode 184 if you are counting from the beginning. We're back on top of the AFL ladder after another close victory over the Crows at the MCG, this time to the tune of 10 points in the wet conditions, but it sets us up nicely for what lies ahead. Today we'll chat through the talking points from the win over Adelaide, grab some more instant reactions from the fans thanks to SpeakPie, discuss a successful VFL report, and speak to our next guest, the crowd competition winner. And the original trio remains in the studio today, Luke Humphries and Marcus Callahan. Gentlemen, I mean, these wins are just coming so often that it's hard to put some words to it. But nonetheless, boys, very nice to grab another 4 points and to end the round on top of the ladder.
Fantastic, Nico. And nice to beat the Crows by 10 points, but double figures for the first time in a while. Dog of a day at the G, I imagine, Lukey. I didn't make it myself, but after 2 quarters of a slog, we were able to kick away and get the win that we needed.
Yeah, it was a hot start. Felt like it was going to be a real quick-paced game, but then the rain came into play and it kind of went a bit messy for a bit, and then again felt like we were going to kick away and then kind of kept them around and made it a bit exciting at the end. But again, felt like a mature win and just continue clocking up these wins. Then nothing incredible or exciting, but just enough players doing what they need to do, and it's not the same guys doing it every week as well, so it's a team performance on most weeks.
Still with a couple of players out, so good to see some others stand up, which I'm sure we'll touch on. Looking at the studio around us, it's slowly starting to build up. I need to give a shout out for a lovely little bottle top just up there. That's thanks to Ace Retro Posters and Frames, so make sure to speak to Andrew. So thank you very much for donating that little piece of memorabilia for our studio. You can hit him up at Northland if you want to get all your posters and frames. So he's the man to go. I've added a little Scott Pendlebury bobblehead. We've got a footy as well, but I'm sure we'll continue to build. I like that we're just slowly making our way through. Oh, yes, Marcus, you've got a little cup for us.
I was just having a drink of water there, Nico.
Thank you.
I brought in a bit of a family heirloom, belonged to the grandfather, my poppy, so something I inherited many years ago. It's been sitting in the cupboard, pretty dusty before coming into the studio.
Still looks
today,
a bit, doesn't it?
It'll be keeping me hydrated this evening.
Fantastic. The hat? I think that's a new one.
No, the hat's made it on once, but another recent purchase. Don't want to know what I paid for it, but it's going pretty well.
Is it an AFL Magpies, or is it just Magpies and it's another brand?
I have no idea who has made this. It's just got an enormous bill on it and fits my head pretty well, Luke.
Because it's a nice hat, I like it.
Go the Magpies.
If you let us, you can tell us after where you found it. Maybe we can go and have a look. All right, we've got a lot to get through in our episode today and chatting through the Crows game. Before we do, I did just want to bring something up off the top, and it was just mainly due to some sadness that occurred over the weekend with the passing of Adam Selwood, and one that really did rock the community, the football community, and from a Collingwood perspective, we know that Scott's been part of the coaching staff for the last little while, and he's had an absolutely devastating last few months with his brother Troy and now Adam, and we saw Fly get pretty emotional post-game, and it was very brave to talk about it the way he did for as long as he did in such a public forum. And I guess in terms of what we do here, we're just a small podcast compared to what the AFL community is. But we first of all wanted to send our condolences to the entire Selwood family for what they've had to deal with already this year, and of course what happened on the weekend. But it's good that we are bringing some mental health initiatives into the AFL sphere, but it's clearly not enough, gentlemen, to see something like this happen is just such a tragedy, and definitely some more work needs to be done. So I just wanted to take this opportunity just to please, for those that are struggling, reach out to your family, to your friends. There's so many services out there that can lead you to the right direction, and we don't want to see those tragedies continue to pop up. The stats are frightening about what the mental health toll is having on so many people, no matter what age or gender. It's just devastating to see that this is having such an effect, and we don't want to see any more deaths happen in terms of us having to then bring this up as a topic. So I'm very grateful to have you guys here, and you two and Jack, of course, are people that I'm very close to, and I feel like I can discuss if there are things going on in my personal life, just as I hope you guys are for me. And just wanted to pass that on, boys, because it's been a tumultuous time, and we just don't want to see that happen at all in our game.
No question, Nico. A somber start, but an appropriate one, and thank you for leading. I'm sure there'll be plenty of podcasts, no matter how big or small, this week, paying tribute to the Selwoods and all that they've had to endure. So, echoing your sentiments completely. And you did mention the pie that caught my eye, which we'll get to in a moment. Not a player, but a coach this week.
Fantastic.
Yeah, 100% nailed it, Nico. And obviously we've spoken with each other on certain issues we've had privately, and just knowing that we've got each other's backs, and how important it is just to speak up and touch base with your mates, no matter what it is. It's so important. So sending our love and condolences to the Selwood family.
I really hope they get this mental health round off the mark, and they do bring it into the AFL and AFLW. Obviously, we had Spud's game a couple of weeks ago, which is a good start, but I'm sure there's so much more work that can be done in that space. So fingers crossed. I guess a good segue then to the pie that caught our eyes, and you just touched on a little bit before, but if you want to share a bit more details about where you went this week, Marcus.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it is the coach, Craig McRae, and I suppose I wanted to pay tribute as well to the way that he handled not only the playing group, but the broader club. As we know, that was not made available to them until after the match for many people involved on match day, and to hold that level of news and the enormity that it carried, and obviously people would have been aware that Scott Selwood was not around on the day, but I just felt the way that Fly handled himself in the immediate post-match interview with Cam Mooney on Fox, and then in his actual presser as well, was just a true embodiment of what the modern man looks like, and someone who clearly was at absolute fever pitch with the amount of emotion he had to hold in and coach a game of footy, mind you, but to then be the leader of the club and do so in such an authentic way, and really, just lean into what had happened rather than trying to resist it. I think it speaks volumes of the man and what he stands for, his values, and it just struck me that how beautiful it was that Fly could actually handle the occasion in such an incredible way. So no stats for that one, Nico. We can't go into any of those sort of performance indicators, but unlike anything I've ever seen.
And showing a bit of vulnerability to it as well, as you said, not shying away from the emotions that would take over, because he's someone that's now worked with Scott for a few years, and the way that the club have embraced each other like family since Fly's arrival as coach, it's no wonder he had that reaction, because Scott's been such a valued part of the Collingwood Football Club for the last little while, someone we've had on our pod as well when he first came onto the scene too. So we could only imagine the devastation that they've been going through right now, and full credit to Fly and the way he handled himself.
Absolutely. I'll go with the pie that caught my eye. I've got Josh Dacos.
Nice.
Just want to give a bit of love to the other Dacos at the Collingwood Football Club, who's absolutely killing it. I think he's had an exceptional season, probably bar maybe the opening couple games. But it felt like just every time we needed someone to step up in an important moment or save us in defence, just clean ball movement, making the right decision at the right time. It was Josh on Saturday, and he's been doing it for a little while this season now. So just wanted to give him a shout out. 29 disposals, leading our disposal count for the day, but just felt like our most important player on the day in wet conditions, but felt like he never made a mistake with the ball in hand.
Having a better season than his brother, albeit injured?
I would say he's our best and fairest right now. If you could stop
him
the
or
count.
Darcy.
Him or DC. All right. So obviously, do you want to get straight to the Nick Dacos Brownlow tracker then?
I think we're stuck on 7 since I brought this into the equation.
I think you jinxed it.
So we might just remove that segment until his next absolute blinder, Nico. But going very poorly, the Dacos tracker.
And I don't know if you're watching on TV, if they ever brought it up on the broadcast, but it was about 2 minutes in and he was jumped up and hobbling for a minute or so, and I thought, so this will be a segue into my start of game complications getting into the ground, which was an absolute nightmare, and the MCG have a lot to work out before the next game there. But in any case, I missed the opening part of the game due to not being able to get in on time. But as soon as I got in, all I seen was Nick jump up and start hobbling. And we're kind of saying to a few people as we're trying to get in, I think Nick Dacos is injured. Kind of looked like it could have been serious, but then he obviously played the rest of the game out. Again, touching on what we've talked about in previous weeks in that certain little niggling things that's going on with him. Is he fully fit? Are they just kind of getting to a point where we may need to rest him due to a few of the issues he's got going on? So I don't know if it was ever touched on during the broadcast and what the outcome of that was.
He got stepped on.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So another player just stepped on his boot and it looked like
so that was
that Neil Bourne? Because he was the one that was tagging him.
Tagging him early. Yeah. Okay. But he did look a bit off before that as well. So I reckon he's...
But anyway, I just want to quickly get to my getting into the ground.
Oh, you want to do a little Tarrant?
I might just do it now.
All right, go on.
Just while I touch on it, just before I forget about it. But anyway, so the line, I was going into gate 4. The line for gate 4 started at gate 3. 40 minutes before the game. So I was there at 12:40. Game starts at 1:20. You think, it's not super early, but it's early enough for a 1:20 game. You don't really want to get there too much earlier into the city and all the effort to do that as well. Anyway, we were trying to find the line and it ended up all the way at gate 3. Then gate 3's lines were crazy as well. In any case, we got into the ground at 1:30.
So what was the difference this time compared to previous games?
Nothing, except they were stopping people. And this was the issue. You'd get to the point and they was, the scanner was happening, like the airport or whatever, and they were stopping certain people but then letting others go. But then all the people who were getting stopped were literally stopped for like 5 minutes and nothing was happening. Meanwhile, families were being split up. You had elderly people being stuck waiting while the younger ones went in, people with tickets all on the same phone having to, wait for the people who had been left behind. And I don't want to put any, disses towards the workers there, but just at times not common sense being used. I had an old lady, probably 70s, 80s, stuck behind me while I assume her grandchild was waiting for her, and just people stockpiling up, waiting for their family members or friends to be let through. I was one that was stuck having to wait to be scanned in, I guess, while my partner was standing there waiting for me. So then it caused another issue of people stockpiling up, waiting for the others to come through. Anyway, we ended up getting... In the end, the process, I don't think, changed at all. They did the same thing. They just wand you through and they turn you around, wand you again, and then they say on your way. So I don't understand what was taking so long and why it was such a hold up in the process, because it felt like they did nothing different to previous weeks.
So 50 minutes, that's pretty absurd, I would have thought.
But you can't have one gate's line starting at another gate. That's because it's chaos. It was chaos out there.
Collingwood supporters will get confused as well.
Yes.
More importantly. No, I'm just wondering if it was the wet weather. Was that adding a little bit?
There was no rain at that point though.
Oh,
it was dry until we kind of got in, and then I'd like a bit more clarification around why.
Please explain.
Well,
obviously
the security guard. I'm sure he can.
Well, I asked him, and I don't know. He didn't have much response from me. He did have a funny little thing about what Bobby Hill said about Carlton before the game. Said they're no good, so stick that up, Carlton.
Nice. Well, there was also ticket issues at the Carlton Sydney game as well. On the
turnstiles,
but it's Carlton, so who cares?
Anyway, it was 72,000. That's still a pretty 67,000. Yep. Prediction was 72. There's going to be games with bigger crowds as well, but that's still a hefty crowd. You don't want to be stuffing around with that many people coming in. So just fine tuning some processes in getting people in, and if you're going to hold us up, maybe do a bit more than just what you were doing previously.
I'm glad you got that. And hopefully they're listening and watching. Just on Josh Dacos as well, he had the 10 coaches MVP vote, so just goes to show the impact he had. To the part that caught my eye, I went with our boy Ned, and I thought he was exceptional again. Geez, it's going to be very hard to see him out of this side when Tom Mitchell's ready, and we'll touch on the VFL a little bit later. But he finished with 19 disposals, 10 contested possessions, 9 tackles, 6 score involvements, 22 pressure acts, and 5 clearances. There was a period in that second quarter, so the Crows had kicked the first 2 goals of the term, and there was a bit of a gap between those goals, and we were missing so many opportunities, and you just felt, here we go again. It's going to be another one of those games where we have all those inside 50s and we can't convert. And then I don't know what happened. There was like a 1-2 minute period where he laid 3 straight tackles and then gave off a couple of goal assists by hand, and all of a sudden the game turned in momentum, and there wasn't that much that happened in that second and third term, but that really stuck out to me as Ned and as a reminder that he would be someone that relishes those conditions, just getting in and under, being gritty, hard at it, laying those tackles and just being strong at the contest. And he spoke about, when he spoke to us, about how much he prides himself on bringing that to this Collingwood side, and that's the reason why he's been able to stay in this team since he came at the start of the year. And I just felt like his presence was really influential into us getting the job done in those conditions. And we're very thankful to have him in that side, because that's what we missed last year with the Goey being in and out and not having anyone that could play that role, particularly with Mitchell missing most of the season as well. And I just felt that Ned's game was an underrated part of our victory, Marcus.
And you don't get a stat for this, but the number of times at a contest on a wet day, we absolutely love this, having a big-bodied midfielder in there and not having to rely on Pendles as that guy anymore, because he's not meant to be that guy anymore. The way that Ned just bumps another player over, gets a tap in. He just does these little things that don't end up on the stat sheet, but because he's so big and powerful and he throws his weight around like he should, I reckon he equalises a lot of contests that we probably shouldn't get the clearance from, but we end up either halving it or having the ball go our way, because he's actually quite athletic for his size, if you know what I mean. Like, he's probably the shape of a key forward, but he's able to play guts and he's got the tank as well. So I'm just acknowledging some of his attributes that maybe weren't on show. I know the kick is a little bit, how you going, but he still took his set shot and got his opportunity. And as you alluded to a couple of weeks ago, Lukey, a lot of penetration on his kicks too. So he's very good forward of centre.
Well, just bullocking his way through the contest and then just launching it almost. But I think you asked him if he had been done holding the ball. He did get done holding the ball. But I reckon he got through 2 or 3 before that. And I was just like, when he got done, I'm like, I remember Nico asked him if he'd been done.
Well, at the time, you could argue.
One for the year isn't bad.
But it was those couple goals, I think, in the second quarter, which just broke us away again. I think they were our last couple goals for it. It felt like an hour before we got another one. But it was one of those games where you just had to take your opportunities when they came, and it made it feel like a game that never felt close, despite the scoreboard being as close as it was. So, he was a bit of a point of difference for us.
As was our backline, who again stood up pretty tall without Darcy Moore, who we saw the news come earlier in the week and we thought, oh boy, this could be a bit of a rough afternoon, and maybe the weather helped, but really it was only Darcy Fogarty that got off the chain and finished with 4 goals. Phil Thorpe was non-influential. Taylor Walker got subbed out anyway and didn't have much impact on the contest. And just want to give a shout out to that whole back line and the way that they were able to stand tall. And I think it was led by Jeremy Howe, Billy Frampton and Braden Maynard. They were the 3, in my eyes, that really pushed this defensive unit to another level. And the fact that we again conceded a lot more clearances in this match, despite them again, we spoke about it last week with the Fremantle game, where they had more inside 50s and they had more clearances, but their disposal efficiency going inside their attacking half was very poor. And there was a question about whether it was our defensive unit or whether it was just actually them not being able to impact. It's similar again when you look at it purely from a statistical point of view, that the Crows were plus 10 in clearances, but they scored 1 goal 7 from that source. They scored from 27% of their inside 50 entries. I think we have to push past the point where it's the opposition and their lack of drive going inside 50 and more about the way we are setting up our back line to prevent our opposition from getting clean looks on goal or having the space to win the ball from the ground and have those flying shots on goal like we have conceded in the past. And I just wanted to give a shout out again. Those 3 could not have played better in my eyes.
I think the rain helped us enormously. And if we say before the match, 5 goals between Thilthorpe, Walker and Fogarty, take it every day of the week. I reckon they've probably been piling on 10 plus throughout better parts of this season. So absolutely, without more in the side, I think it was very helpful for us that we did have some wet weather, and Tex Walker being subbed off probably speaks to that. But nonetheless, Nico, you're absolutely right. We are not bleeding goals anymore. We are not letting cheap ones get through. Like you mentioned earlier, Luke, I was a bit frustrated with some of the looks that they got, particularly early in the game. But as the match wore on and we just continued to apply our style, we were happy to go slow. We were happy to make it a stoppage game. And most importantly, we set up very well behind the footy. And I think Jeremy Howe and Billy Frampton is really starting to put together a decent season. So whatever we've got as our back six mix, I'm becoming less concerned about who's there and more excited about the system that's at play, because it's a different version to 2023.
I was just going to give a shout out to Frampton. I thought that was one of his best games. As a magpie, he actually did something pretty exciting with that little show and go.
That balk in the third quarter, my goodness.
So he was full of confidence, Big Bill, but just a lot of big spoils and always, like the general in defence is, we've got Darson, Howie and Maynard, these guys who are flashy and can do their thing and take big marks, but Bill just comes with a big fist and stops the big key forwards. So shout out to Bill as well. I thought Perryman, he's come along quietly, I guess, across this season, but I reckon his last 2 or 3 weeks he's really showing how important he can be for us and able to play multiple positions, but particularly going back into defence and going back with a lot of courage at times as well and taking some big marks to save us. So
I feel like with Perryman, his role's been more solidified now in the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's had to mix and match between the midfield and the back line due to personnel, but now that he's got a bit more of a role in that defensive unit, I think that's really helped his game and settle in to the system that we want to play as well. And for Billy Frampton, Jack put it perfectly a few weeks ago. We simplify his role to just stopping the forward that he's playing on, then he can have such a massive influence on the game.
And ear massage, I think that's the key.
But he's definitely got a lot more confidence with ball in hand. He's getting a lot more opportunity and taking the kicks that he might not have taken previously.
And he's probably having the season that we hoped Reef might have had had he stayed on the park, in terms of having a clearly defined role and getting continuity rather than 2 weeks in, 1 week out based on form. So full power to Billy Frampton. So
Jeremy Howe had 13 set possessions, which is the second most in his career, and he went at 94% disposal efficiency with 17 touches and 8 rebound 50s. Braden Maynard, 24 disposals, 6 intercepts, 580 metres gained, 4 marks and 4 tackles, all while being the stand-in captain, of course. Maybe that can help him stick around for the Pies. I heard that we tabled a 4-year contract offer for him to stay at the club, so hopefully that's enough.
Don't make someone captain if they're leaving.
I've heard he's going nowhere.
Yeah. I don't think you accept captaincy if you know you're potentially leaving. So,
geez, I hope not. Any other facets of this game that sort of took your eye? I mean, we said it off air, Luke. It was a very weird game in the sense that started well, then it was 2 quarters of pretty average footy with the weather playing a big role in that. Although I feel like that third quarter, Adelaide really had an opportunity, but it was just our pressure around the contest that forced them to not be as efficient as they would have liked. But second and third quarter, very average. Last quarter came to light a little bit, and then they kicked those last 2 goals to make it interesting in the final 5 minutes of the game.
They kicked, I think, 4 or 5 out in the full as well, which we shouldn't forget about.
Mainly from Isaac.
Rankin, I think he kicked 3 out in the full.
He did.
It was crazy. And they weren't hard shots. It was like, and it was, I think one of them, he was given a bit of lip and then he kicked out in the full and they gave it rightly back to him. But yeah, just hot start, game was on, messy second and third quarters, kind of sat there thinking like nothing is really happening here right now, and then like it's just going to set up for a last quarter thriller. We didn't quite get the thriller, but I think we did enough just to put them away and hold them at bay and go on for that comfortable win despite them having a late flurry at the end. I thought there were some very questionable umpiring decisions at certain points, and for some reason it's amazing when you go on social media and you see like opposition fans and Adelaide fans carrying on like they were hard done by. I felt like we were incredibly hard done by.
It's getting pretty bad this
and it wasn't really talked about, but the Bobby Hill free kick against when Hoskin Elliott marked in the square, he would have kicked the goal to put us up by nearly 30. Game would have been done at that point. Free kick gets paid against Hill.
Unrealistic.
Yeah, but I watched the replay straight away and the Adelaide player, forget who it was, he actually just fell over. Bobby didn't even touch him, so Bob just went up for the mark. Looked like potentially unrealistic, but didn't even touch the Adelaide player. He just fell to ground, and then Hoskin Elliott would have kicked the goal. Anyway, Adelaide goes straight down there and kick a goal. Happened a couple other times. They had a throw that ended up being a goal.
Yes.
So just, a few questionable ones, but, it happens.
Yeah, I think, we won, so I'm just going to let it go. But I also made the comment in our chat that there was some woeful calls both ways in this game of footy, and I'll just leave it there for this week. But I think, Nico, I was actually a bit frustrated with the margin. I feel like we won enough of the game when it was a tug of war to go on and capitalise, and we do have a great way of just throughout periods of quarters making it a bit of an arm wrestle, and it's a bit ugly even if it's dry or wet, but we maintain our structure and we don't let teams get huge runs of momentum on us, or so it seems anymore. And I was just like, okay, there was a few set shots missed, there was a few easy looks where had we capitalised, it probably does get out to like a 4 to 5 goal margin by 3/4 time, but we just, I don't know, we had shades of deja vu last week against Freo, but they didn't pile on the 4 goals in the last 10 minutes, and we went on to win. And then we won by more than 10 points against Adelaide this week. So there's still growth in that compared to the last couple of seasons. So all in all, I'm happy. It was just that, come on, like, can we just punish these teams and 2011 pies?
Well, arguably, maybe if it was dry, that may have been the case.
Potentially.
You could also got a 4 or 5 week period coming up where we would like to punish a couple of these teams.
So that's a great segue into what I was going to ask you before we get to our votes. So this is a win that I feel like does set the season up into a very valuable position. Top of the ladder by 2 points. We've had a very tough 10 weeks to the fixture, played some brutal sides. I've only dropped the Giants and the Cats, and that one was virtually on the siren. I've picked some really important wins. We travel only twice more for the remainder of the year. We're still to play North, West Coast, Richmond, and a few of those other sides around the bottom. So how does a result like we did on Saturday against a team that's looking to contend themselves, how does it set us up for the remainder of the year? Because, as we said, we're in a pretty fortunate position the way we are. Touch wood, it stays like that, both with the wins that we've banked up, but also with the ability now to potentially manage some plays in the back half of the year.
Yeah, look, we're in an envious position. I guess there's always that mindset of you want to be winning the games you should win, and I'm so impressed through our body of work this year, except for probably the Geelong game. Again, it was after the siren. We've been able to go on with the job and get it done and not make it a come from behind win, but maintain our ascendancy throughout matches. So that's been fantastic. Got to give the Pies credit where credit is due. It's just we know that teams who peak in that sort of round 17 through to the end, they're the teams that go into finals with a fantastic opportunity to take it all. And I think I heard a stat that only 2 of the last 10 premiers or something have been on top at this point in the season. So while we want to bank wins and have that luxury with an ageing list in the back half, I'm also like, do we want to have our purple patch too early in the season? Because we know that form slump's going to come, whether it's through injury or just psychologically it's hard to keep rocking up, Lukey. But what do you reckon?
Well, I have to argue, I don't think we're anywhere near a purple patch. I feel like we've been winning without, and we've touched on there's so much more room for improvement, and there's a lot of growth still in this team. So I feel like we've been winning without setting the world on fire. And you still, I think Kane Corns had his top 5 teams or rankings they do on SCN, and Collingwood weren't even in there. So Collingwood's still, despite being on top of the ladder, not really in people's thoughts on being the best team in this thing right now. So, and that's how, as a supporter, it feels like we've still got so much more to come, so much better we can play, that I feel like we haven't quite hit that patch of, this is our best.
That's good. That's all we want.
But we've still been winning despite that. And I didn't even think about that. Like, you kind of wave that Giants game. Chris kicks that goal. We haven't lost since then. So it's incredible to think that. I think the last 2 weeks, super important. Freo just getting that win, and the Crows, who were probably close to being the next best informed side in the comp. So just to kind of shut them down and go, well, just you sit back down and let the big boys play. Now sets us up for the next 4 or 5 weeks where we do play some of the lower sides. But it's important for us.
Can't stoop down to their level.
We got to win. Yeah. We can't let a game like the North Melbourne one, like last year, happen whatsoever. But despite our percentage being pretty healthy now, we'd like to still really bank on that and improve it, get it 140, 150, and be in a position where we're locking in top 4, but almost first place on the ladder as well by the end of the year.
And you're spot on, because without sounding too dramatic, we could have easily have lost our last 3 games. The way that things and factors have worked out, we've been able to secure 2 of the last 3, and of course be 8-2 coming into round 11. But it could have been a very different story. So we've got to be grateful that we are banking these wins as they are, and it's a nice place to be in. Daniel, our producer, is probably sick and tired because being an Essendon supporter, he has had to deal with this for the last half an hour.
God, how bad were they?
Oh boy, they were.
I said to a few people, I said, God, like being a Collingwood supporter has its ups and downs, but it is the best thing, I think, comparing to a Carlton or an Essendon, right?
Well, Blues, Tigers, Bombers all losing this weekend.
But even just across our lifetimes, we've been so blessed. Like Essendon, how long has it been since they won a final? And Carlton's been mediocre and think they're
it's funny.
the next best thing coming. But it is definitely a very good thing that we're all Collingwood
We want the
supporters.
SD card to stay in the camera, right? Coming back to what you're talking about, Dicko, though, like the Nick Dacos thing needs to be brought up again, given we feel like we're going to be in an enviable position come round 14, round 15, I hope. I haven't gone too early there, but I am really looking at his season now as one where if we do chalk up, like what do you reckon we're going to need for top 4? 15, 16 wins this season, about the mark? When do we pull the trigger? If Nick keeps hobbling around, he got stepped on the weekend. I still, he had like that many handballs. Like, why is he not kicking on the weekend? I'm not convinced that's a strategic decision.
We are a very handball happy team.
We are, but it was just it was just a little bit too obvious just how much Nick was handballing. So he's fighting through something, but I'm bringing this back from last week. How many wins, Lukey, before we say, okay, Nick's still only operating at 70-75%. He's getting tagged every week. Like, when do we give him a couple of weeks off if that's appropriate?
There was no real tag put to him.
Neil
We had
Bullen
Neil
was
Bullen
there.
for a bit, but he tried, but it didn't really work.
Well, I was.
Or do you disagree? Do you think he just plays until the end of the year?
Well, I think he just got to. If he's good, like we're kind of guessing or looking based on conjecture a bit, if he's actually kind of going at that 70-80%. But I mean, if he's happy to keep going, I wouldn't be pulling him out again. I don't like playing too cute with selection. I think managing older guys is one thing, but if you start managing him potentially, you potentially get found out and we drop a game we shouldn't drop because we've been too cute at the selection table, and we probably see how much impact bringing him out of the side actually does have on us, even in the weeks where he's not killing it with 40 disposals and 3 goals. Just the scareness, I guess, we put in the opposition of them like literally shitting themselves that Nick Dacos is playing against us today, and putting so much worry into him, meaning so many of our other midfielders get off the chain. That's where you pull Nick out, and all of a sudden
you give back something to the oppo.
And I just don't think, no matter who you're playing, it's probably not worth it unless he is really struggling with something.
I guess I'm just trying to paint a picture. If he just continues to bobble along, and yes, he goes and gets his 25, and he's not killing it, and he's not a chance for the Brownlow, I don't want to say that. But does there come a point where we go, we want him cherry ripe for finals, not just getting to the finish line? So it'll be an interesting watch, like with De Goey, just how we manage him, and Tommy Mitchell.
Well, that's what I was going to add. It's when Mitchell and De Goey become available where there might be more scope for that to be a possible option.
I'm not saying it has to happen. I'm just really curious about how we get to manage players and the flexibility we have if we chalk up enough wins.
It's funny because you look on paper and you see he had 28 touches, 7 clearances, nearly 400 metres a game. You think, geez, he's had a pretty good game. But watching it, he's probably not in your top 3 or 4. So, yeah, it's a very interesting conversation.
Do we not have a bye?
What do you mean, do we not have a bye? It's after King's birthday. Yeah, we definitely do.
Yes, no, you're right. So looking there, so we've got the Hawks on the 30th of May and then 9th of June, which ends up being a Friday to a Monday. So what's that, 9-day, 10-day break to the Monday. And then, we've got the bye then. So are you just kind of getting to that period and going, you've got, without taking him completely out, you've got a bit of break in there?
I'm hesitant at this point in time because he's still producing somewhat of an output.
I'm not saying it's bad enough now. It's just that if he continues...
If we get up by...
If
we get up by 60 against North this weekend at 3/4 time, do you sub him off?
Just starting to look at these other options. If we were what's our record 8-2? If we were 5-5, I wouldn't have been talking about this, right? It's just
because after North, you got Hawthorn, which ends up being a blockbuster Friday night. There's no way you're not playing him then. King's birthday, you're not pulling him out.
That's what we're saying. So does it become an opportunity?
Maybe the Saints.
Well, they're not great. All right. one to keep an eye out for, that's for sure. We've got to slightly move along. Let's get to our votes very briefly from what we saw on the weekend. If we get our 3, 2, 1s, please, Marcus.
One vote, I've gone with Ned Long. Thought he was incredibly solid. Love having a blue-collar player for a wet day of footy. 2 votes, I've gone with Howie. Thought he was enormous. One of his better games I've seen him play, turning back the clock as well. And 3 votes to Josh for an outstanding effort rebounding off the halfback line. Lukey.
Yep. 1 for Frampton. Want to reward him. 2 for Howe. And 3 for Dacos. Josh Dacos.
I was exactly the same as you, Marcus. Long 1, Howe 2, Josh Dacos 3. I think they were a pretty standard top 3 there throughout the afternoon. All right. Let's get the headphones on. One of our favourite segments is here. That is SpeakPie. We thank everyone that does send through. We would love to play them all, of course, but time permitting. We've only got a few to get through, but we do thank everyone that sends them in. We've had some funny ones, and you would have seen it shared on our socials. So keep an eye out for when Lukey does put it post-game, and that's your opportunity to get involved as well with our SpeakPie. So thank you very much. Let's run through them. And let's start with Marcus, who is our Dallas friend, thanks to our sponsor, North Texas Devils. And he can kick things off for our SpeakPie today.
The Adelaide Crows were robbed right in front of me. Right in front of me. Robbed of their dignity because they just seem to poop down their leg a little bit when they come up against these mighty Magpies. 10 in a row. Unreal. 3 votes to Jacos and the back 6. Unreal to keep them to that low score. North Texas Devils are taking on the US men's national team today, so be sure to tune in for that one. A bunch of American blokes that have hardly played the game before, so hopefully we beat the P155 out of them as well. Shout out to Peter Dacos Wood. Hooroo, fellas. Thanks. Bye.
Geez, the US national team, that's right up there.
And tough to watch a game that happened in the past, Nico.
Well, yeah, you got to let us know how that went. It's pretty hard to sort of examine it now, but yeah, good luck. Hopefully that went well. This is our mate Jake, who's a regular, and he's put in brackets here, lid is off. So you can imagine what this will be.
Drum roll.
Post Nation, how are we? As you can probably tell, we're just leaving the game. Hold 'em wet, windy. Honestly, we've done all right. A few fumbles, obviously, from the wet. Some parts of the game I nearly fell asleep, not going to lie. Pilot caught my eye really today was Bo McQuarrie. He just had that pressure, and a lot of people did say that he was going to be that pressure point for Adelaide. Didn't agree with a lot of the umpires' calls and a lot of free kicks that weren't counted for, but at the end of the day, we got the dub, never in doubt. The lid is actually off, and I cannot find it. That's how off it is. Anyway, boys, speak to you after.
There you go. That was Jake. Thank you, mate.
I reckon he's weaseling his way onto this couch
He's
every
trying to
week.
Squeeze
Well, he
through.
touched on Bo, and I know I think you messaged about Bo earlier.
Yeah, when I sent that message, literally every passage of play he was involved in afterwards was positive.
But he had a few little moments where it felt like he was almost trying too hard to
just lower the eyes is
Yeah,
all I'd like
yeah.
if he's playing.
But he started in the midfield, so that definitely,
true.
yeah.
Still a better game than what he has produced over the first 5.
He's
or
had a
6 weeks
good
that he-
last couple of weeks, yeah.
Yes.
Jack to thank for that, I reckon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Put the onus on him. This is David, who we've had before as well, but thank you, David.
Well, it's Dave here, boys, again. That was pretty much the game I expected, and I'm glad for it. There weren't too many highlights to go around, but on a true winter's day on a wet deck, the boys just simply kept going and got it done. Josh Dacos was huge. Maynard took on the captain's mantle with aplomb. I thought Quaynor was huge at different times as well. And pretty much everyone in this forward line took their chances when they had them, and they got it done when it mattered. The good news is too, how many of the great players we still have to come back to hold the Adelaide Tall Timber to 10 goals, even without Das, is a true credit to them. So sitting on top of the ladder, enjoying the view, the lid is certainly trembling, but it's not off yet.
Trembling.
See ya.
Trembling. Okay, thank you, David.
Very good. Glad he mentioned Q.
Yep.
I reckon he's having
Haven't
a
touched
season
on him lately, but yes.
that is just flying under the radar at the moment. Not setting the world on fire, but every time there's a one-on-one contest, I feel very confident that he's going to come out on top. So well done to David and well done to IQ.
Very nice. A couple more to wrap up. This is Ponsford Pete. So,
This better be good.
all right, well, let's wait and listen to it.
Boys, I'm talking to you from the toilet of the V line on the 650 back to Warren Ponds, talking to my phone in my seat, but I had to express myself. Sir William Frampton, I go to the footy every single week. I'm a Legends member. I watch this team to the minute, and I like to come out with it just from the point of view that's something a bit different. And I've noticed with Bill, he's just playing with confidence that I haven't seen him play with in his whole time at the Pies. He was the most confident today that I've seen him. He was brilliant. He deserves some flowers. He's going to have detractors throughout his career with us, but fucking hell, he was good today. So big up, Bill. You led from the front. And I'm a bit pissed. So back to me, C. Go the boys.
That delivered.
Just imagine someone banging on the door wanting to get in.
And I always appreciate a new nickname for a player. So Sir William will be going around these couches. Mark my words.
I like it. Let's wrap up with Rob McLean. So thank you, Rob, for sending yours in.
I consider myself a refined South Australian. I love my red wines. Your Rockfords, your Rusdens, your Whistlers. But my favourite wine, my favourite South Australian wine, is the noise made by the Adelaide Football Club when they lose to the Mighty Pies. You!
Okay, thanks, Rob.
In and out.
That was it. That's all he needed to say.
Fantastic.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you for that. We always love hearing those, so be sure to continue getting involved, as we said. Keep an eye out for the post on our Pies Nation socials as soon as the game's done, and that could be your voice being heard as well on the Pies Nation podcast. So this segment, I think, has been a big success over the last few weeks, Marcus.
I just thought he was going to go with like Howie playing well, fine wine, growing older, Pendle, Steel, 308 or something like that. But no, just the sound of the
We'll take it.
crows
Crows
losing.
whining.
Beautiful.
Whining. That works out well. All right, well, let's move on to our guess the crowd and guess the margin. The margin was 10 points, of course. Lukey, have you done it this week?
Yes.
All right, very good. Any shout-outs for our 10 pointers?
Yes.
Drive by.
So I got a few. Conquer 2 on Instagram, Pies by 10. Maz 13 hour, Pies by 10. I think that was Marie, which may have been a Guess the Crowd contender one week as well. So Pies by 10. Jack Hartley, Pies by 10 on Instagram as well. Stefan Valudu, 10, hashtag goat number. He also messaged the page
Just to let us know.
let us know, but he was close to Guess the Crowd as well, so
Okay.
he nearly did the double this week. Unfortunately not. Benjamin Craig on Twitter, 10-point win. Active Scooter on Twitter, 10 points, and that is it.
Very nice. I said on Thursday in our preview pod 9 points. Don't know why I'm giving myself a shout-out because I didn't get it, but I just thought I'd let everyone know that I was very close.
Good for you,
If
Nico.
Rankin kicked that, it would have been.
Yeah, I know.
9, so you would have been, yeah.
Actually, we did not even, before we get to the Guess the Crowd, how awesome was our fans singing the a cappella of the Collingwood theme song at that final siren? The song starts playing and then it stops because there's a 50-metre penalty to Adelaide have another shot on goal, yet we just continue to sing. Oh, I reckon, and you posted it on the socials as well, Lukey. I thought that was one of the coolest moments and it would have been awesome to be involved in.
Maybe it's the start of something.
Well, it felt on point at that point because I felt like we're being robbed by the umpires, and they still tried to give him one after the siren, but it was like our little, back at you kind of thing. Like, we're going to keep singing this song even though you've pulled the plug on it, and it was really cool.
That was awesome.
Felt like, such a nice moment for just being a Collingwood supporter and being there, a part of it. So, shout out to the supporters who kept it going, and maybe, we can do it in future weeks as well.
Seriously, I reckon we should grow something here. An encore of the song once it goes off. That would be...
Or even when the boys run out, don't even play the song. Just let the crowd sing it and see how it goes.
Speaking of crowd, so we had 67,000 odd, 67,967 or something along those lines. Who are we speaking to today?
So I've got Courtney, who had 67,795. So I think she was roughly about 100 off, or just under 100. So shout out to Courtney. Most people had a bit higher, 70 plus. So I think the weather dropped it down. Prediction was 72, so lost a few to the weather, I believe. Plus, probably people still outside the ground when they did the count.
Still upset, eh? Yeah, I get it.
Well, I got told it looks like it's a bit of a low crowd once we're in. I said, because half the people are still out there.
All right, we'll get the MCG involved for you. But in the meantime, let's chat to Courtney, who was our Guess the Crowd winner for this week.
Courtney speaking.
Hello, Courtney. It's Nicholas from the Pies Nation podcast. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
That's good to hear. Well done. Congratulations on being our Guess the Crowd winner for this week's episode. As we always like to know, we need to know the method behind your predictions. So was there anything particular this week, or was it just a pure guess?
Mostly a pure guess. I did go to the same game last year, and I went back and looked at the crowd number from that, and I was kind of going solely off of that. I think it was around the same last year, and I thought this year I was like, the weather might have maybe deducted that a little bit, but just a random.
Very nice. Now, were you one of those that made your way to the G on Saturday? And I guess regardless, how did you view another victory for the Pies as we make our way to the top of the ladder?
I did go to the game on Saturday. It travelled 5 hours from Mount Gambier.
Nice.
So it was good to see Collingwood win again. So we seem to be doing very well. So keep rolling.
Keep it rolling. Great to have you, Courtney. It's Luke here. Now, we want to touch on you got a friendship with our previous Guess the Crowd winner, Kira. Do you want any words for Kira this week, or any feedback for how she went with us last week?
Oh, I did message her straight away when I got the message, and she was like, no way. Are you like, her response was a little bit more, full of profanities, but I was like, I messaged her straight away. She was the first person I thought of, and I was like, oh my God, what are the chances? That's awesome. We were just touching on before, we've had 4 females in a row as well for the Guess the Crowd, so that's incredible. But to have 2 friends is even better. So
very nice stuff.
You might be cheating the system somehow.
No, not at all. Not at all.
G'day, Courtney. It's Marcus here. Now, you were at the game. I wasn't. Can you tell me what was going wrong with the umpiring?
There were a few calls that just, there was a Riley Silthorpe throw that led to a goal, and that's the one that I was, definitely going on about. But, I don't know if the weather also kind of played a bit of, because some of the ways that the umpires were calling things, I was like, I could see where they were coming from, but then I thought, the weather might have also led to an incorrect disposal because they have no control. So it makes it a little bit harder. But
a couple of insufficient intents, I thought, were a bit harsh on a wet day. Kind of let it go to an extent. Just being from Mount Gambier, are you South Australian, born and bred?
Yes, I am.
Yep. So do you travel to a lot of Collingwood games, I guess, to Melbourne, or was this kind of once a year kind of thing for you?
Mostly once a year. I was lucky this year to get to gather round as well. So this is my second game for the year, and it probably will be my last, depending on what happens. If I can get to another game, then I'll be lucky too, but
try and get those grand final tickets later in the piece, potentially.
Well, I'm going to bring a bit of a throwback question for you, Courtney, before we wrap up. Tell us a memorable game that sticks out throughout your time, because as you said, you probably don't get to many as as you would like, or the typical, I guess, Victorian Collingwood supporter. But is there a game that you've been to throughout your time as a Pies fan that really sticks out in the memory that you'd like to share?
Oh, Collingwood Essendon round 1922 when Jamie Elliott sunk the match winner. Kira and I actually did go to that game together. So
there you go. See, there's
amazing.
a connection.
Very memorable.
That's fantastic.
And sitting not that far from like where it happened was,
It's pretty
something I will remember very well. So
fantastic. Pretty surreal moment, that one, I think. So very good stuff there.
And a couple of loyal Pies Nation followers at the game together, which we
see. Just everybody knows. It just works out somehow. Courtney, it's been wonderful to have you on as part of the podcast. Before we do let you go, I need to know from you if the lid is off.
I have been known in the past to get very ahead of myself. I don't want to say it is yet, but it's slowly lifting. So
we're getting there.
Like, what percentage of the lid have you got off at the moment?
I'd want to say, maybe 60% off.
Ooh, okay, that's always
70.
Trending 70, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's more than half. That's a good improvement.
I am one of those Magpie supporters that is very cocky, and my mood very muchly depends on how we go.
Yes.
The weekend before, so yes.
Well, that just means you're a true supporter then, Courtney. So that's what it's all about,
yes.
And that's what we love. So thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode. Well done on being our Guess the Crowd winner, and hopefully we get to see you back from Mount Gambier later this year to celebrate a flag.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Very, very, very lucky.
No,
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney.
And that was Courtney joining us as part of our Guess the Crowd competition. That could be you if you guess the crowd. So keep an eye out for the for the posts on the Pies Nation pages in the lead up to each match day. Give it your best shot, and if you are closest to the pin, that will be you joining us as part of our Guess the Crowd competition winner. Very nice stuff there from Courtney. Great to see some more interstate Pies as well getting involved with the Guess the Crowd competition, boys.
Let alone friends.
And the odds of her actually getting to this game and getting the crowd correct and joining us for the podcast is
just meant to be, wasn't
pretty cool as well. So, and for a South Australian to beat Adelaide and travel for it.
It's all happening.
Stars aligning. Let's look at the VFL from the weekend, because it was another very impressive win from the Mighty Pies. They got the job done over a GWS side who had not lost a game in the lead up to that match, and it was very nice to see the Pies continue on their winning ways. Marcus?
I did have a look at this, and it was a fantastic, very similar conditions, obviously, being played down the road at Vic Park, but full credit to the Pies with a few names back. Tommy Mitchell will be obviously the big one to mention, getting through a full match, but against an undefeated Giants outfit, fantastic validation that both programs are starting to really click, and another big game for Charlie West. So fantastic, but take it away, the Surge.
On a wet Saturday morning, the 6th placed VFL Pies with 11 AFL listed players took on the top of the ladder Giants. Mitchell returned for his second game and increased his game time. GWS jumped the Pies early, kicked the first 2 goals of the game in very slippery conditions. The Pies pegged it back, and their accuracy in front of goals are one of the key differences between the two teams. Collingwood led by 9 points at quarter time. They were challenged in the second and third terms at times. However, Collingwood responded superbly through their great work rate and ability to pressure the opposition. Charlie Dean ensured the Pies' defence was well set up structurally and stood up in the tough conditions. Him and Glover were ably supported by Jacob Ryan and TJ, who also took several intercept marks and rebounded many attacks. The swarming mentality and ability to get numbers to the contest ensured our forwards finished the third quarter with a couple of late goals. Plenty of our forwards all provided the Pies with plenty of drive, whilst Charlie West dominated with accurate kicking and marking. An 11-point three-quarter time lead was what Collingwood had. In the final term, it was a dour struggle as the rain tumbled down with both defences on top. No goals ended up being kicked by either side. Midway through the last quarter, the Pies looked to maintain possession as conditions deteriorated deteriorated with a view to close the game down. In the end, Collingwood won by 11 points to knock off the top of the ladder Giants, and this was a very strong victory. So his highlights include Tom Mitchell playing a full game. He had 21 disposals. Charlie West kicking 3 goals, 1. He can't be far away from a senior debut. Excellent defensive effort to restrict WS to 45 points. And Harry DiMattia's game, very impressive, and he continues to improve after a 28 disposal performance. So these AFL listed players that are getting the job done in the VFL, they're really pushing for selection. That's what we like to see from a side that's contending for a flag.
Glad the Surge mentioned Harry DiMattia. Played more midfield time. He's been played on the half-back a lot in the VFL from the games I've seen. So fantastic for him to probably have his best game for the club at the level. And as for Charlie West, what do we think, boys? Does Checkers get another rest? I'm not convinced he was 100% on the weekend despite the inclement weather. West, he looks just absolutely bursting
ready-made,
a breakout game, and I think North is the sort of match where I'd like to see a debutant.
That's what I was about to say. Do you go for it this week against North?
Pull the trigger.
No disrespect, but it's not. He is ready. It's not like we're just throwing him in.
3, 3, 3, 4, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Like that's his returns. Yeah. He's on fire.
Do you think about potentially, because we're coming up against a very strong ruck in Tristan Sherry, is there an opportunity to take Cox out of this side this week and play Charlie West up forward?
Weather? What have we got?
Under the roof of Marvel, so it won't matter.
No weather.
Although teams seem to kick worse at Marvel for some reason. So.
What do we think of that possibility?
It's actually not a bad shout. I think Coxie's another guy who's probably one of our older players, so managing him, but he did have like 5 touches and came off early, so I probably wouldn't mind giving him another run at it in the dry weather. But Charlie West, you just got to give him a game. You've got to release that pressure that he's obviously built for selection.
Absolutely.
So,
but I do like that we're giving it time. We're not
rushing it.
Yeah.
Well, we're in a fortunate position where we're not having any injuries, touch wood, where we need.
If he was in another side, he might have got pushed in already, potentially, and it kind of to his downfall, a lot of pressure and kind of kills his confidence. But you kind of feel like no matter what, he comes in to a side that it's not going to be like it's all on him to dominate. He can just do his thing. Our forward line flows the way it does, that he won't have to be the focal point, I guess, coming into this side.
Well, this time last year, he's absolutely playing, so we'll see. VFL Pies, who they got this week?
Playing North, Vic Park on Sunday, 2:05, and currently sitting in 5th position, so things going very nicely across the ones and the twos.
Very nice. That might be a game I might make my way down and have a look at Vic Park.
Just a quick shout out to Courtney, who's straight on the Twitter and let us know that she chatted to us and was very excited, very nervous as well. So shout out to Courtney. You did speak and do very well with us. So
she did.
Great to have you on and great to have your support of the podcast as
Live reactions. Very nice. Yes. The VFLW girls also got a victory. They defeated Box Hill by just 2 points at Victoria Park, 4-3 to 3-7. So we were able to make the most of our opportunities up forward, and we were able to produce a terrific win. So fantastic stuff. And it looks like from the scorecard that Box Hill pushed very late in that final term. They kicked 2 goals, 2 in the last quarter, but they just fell short. And the Pies girls were able to get the job done. So that's awesome stuff. We moved to 8th position, but we're only 4 points behind the 6th place Hawks, who we just defeated. We have North Melbourne as well coming up, and that one is also at Victoria Park Sunday, 10:05. So a nice double header. The Roos are 4-1 in that competition, though. So we'll have to be on our best, but great to see that VFL, VFLW, and AFL all getting wins on the weekend, which is good stuff.
Good to see North going well across one aspect of the AFL landscape, VFLWs.
Can't take them lightly this week, Marcus.
That's right. Hey, they're off the back of a win.
Absolutely. All right, I think we've got enough time to squeeze into games, so let's give you one and let's get the mind rolling before we wrap up. We're going back to blind rankings, so I need you two to put your best foot forward here.
Our favourite, Lukey.
All right. So today, I want you to blindly rank these moments from Indigenous Collingwood players.
Beautiful.
Of course, in the middle of Sir Doug Nicholls' round, and it's been great to see that celebrated throughout the AFL. So I thought I'd be opportune to give us some more highlights. So let's see how you go with these rankings. First one, Travis Varco's first goal in the 2018 Grand Final.
Oh, so there's a moments from...
Yes, just moments, not players.
Just we win that game. That is number one, I reckon. That was an almighty moment at the time. especially being there. But it's hard because, it's not a day you want to kind of go back to.
So hold on, let's just, before we give a number, we've got Bobby in there, surely, at some point, which is going to be right up there. Do any Indigenous players have big moments in... Do we have any in the 2010 side?
Just going to wait.
Leon Davis.
You're gonna have to. I'm gonna have too many thoughts going on. I'm not saying if we won that day, it's close to 1, but because we don't win, it probably goes to a 4 or 5. Just because it's not a moment we speak or look back on, just because
remember because of the outcome.
Yeah.
All right.
And I feel like there's going to be other moments that are going to definitely rank higher because of.
But it's a granny.
I know, but how often
massive.
have we actually gone back and spoken about it compared to probably other moments?
Oh, you're completely right in the context of just like.
But I do remember at the time it was
massive,
unbelievable,
massive.
I'm going to go 4
because his sister.
Exactly right.
Had just passed. 4.
Yeah, I just feel like there's going to be others that we're going to want to have higher.
I'm going 3.
So do we?
Oh, you got to make a choice.
We'll go 3 and we'll see what happens.
All right. Next is Bobby Hill's Mark of the Year last year.
Oh, Bobby's going to feature more than once here.
So can the same player feature more than once?
I have not put the same player more than once.
So, because I was going to say,
just to help you out,
his grand final moments.
Just controversial that you haven't put that in.
Because that would have been clear number 1, I reckon, though.
I've just picked some random. It's not like I'm ranking.
And
these.
I feel like
what else is going to be in there? Cracks potentially. Rest in peace. Mark of the Year. Just trying to think of. Did Brad Dick have any big moments?
Queen's birthday. I'm going to probably go 2.
Yep, happy with that.
Okay.
Just because I feel like we're going to have another moment where
we're in trouble already.
Leon Davis's goal of the year in 2008.
That
was against Fremantle.
That was the one,
WA.
the Freo one, yeah.
With the worst commentary of all time.
And it was Bruce as
Yeah, I
well.
know.
It's crazy that it was so like...
I'm so mad about it. But anyway.
It's pretty epic.
I feel like that's going to be the one.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Lock it in. We're going to take 2.
Because it is a pretty iconic...
We're going to get it wrong anyway.
Whenever, his highlights get played, it's always one that's... Yeah.
Next is Andrew Cracker's Mark of the Year in 2011.
See, that's probably one.
I reckon Bobby's Hill mark was better.
But Cracker's...
So similar.
The moment was epic, and that game was epic.
Crows?
Yeah. That was the comeback and not necessarily the big comeback, but the pile on that we did after that.
4.
It's unfortunately has to go there.
That's all we've got, isn't it? 4 and 5.
Yeah. So your number 5 spot is Sharad Wellingham Sealer in the 2010 Grand Final replay.
Again, it's a granny, so we've put it at 5.
And that's
it.
it.
Seals the deal, but we're already home by the length of the
Yeah,
Flemington
see, I'm
straight.
pretty comfortable with his being there at 5. I'm pretty comfortable with Varco's at 4, I reckon.
Well, you put him at 3.
Actually, I had him at 4.
Sorry,
Put him
I had him
I was happy with him at 4. If
we flip those.
Yeah, and then the other 3 honestly could...
Such big moments, but in
Yeah.
different contexts.
Absolutely.
Like flags versus awards,
Yeah. So Davis's goal of the year at 1. You had Bobby Hill's Mark of the Year at 2. Varco's first goal in the grand final at 3. Cracker's mark at 4. Wellingham Sealer at 5.
Yeah, I'd probably swap 3 and 4, but I reckon there's 1 and 2 are pretty touch and go there.
Lovely stuff, gents. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Pies Nation podcast. Thank you, Marcus and Luke, for joining me along.
Thank you, gentlemen. Getting a bit cooler, but we're staying hot.
Yes, we
Pies
are.
Nation.
Maybe a few more of those scars behind you. Till next week, I've been Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening to or watching the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. We love all our listeners and viewers across Australia that enjoy the Pies Nation podcast, but we love our overseas viewers and listeners as well. And one of those that have gotten on board are the boys and girls over at the North Texas Devils in the US, who are looking for players to join their sides ahead of the 2025 season. Based in Dallas, Texas, and established back in 2020, they're hoping to bolster awareness of Australian rules football over in the US. And any of those listening or watching our podcast that are heading over to the US, at some point this year. The one team for you to get involved with is the North Texas Devils. We'll give you all the information in our descriptions, I should say, across our podcasts and YouTube. But a great opportunity to get involved with some Aussie rules and teach the Yanks the best game in the world. And you can do so thanks to the North Texas Devils.